Hi, my name is Bharat and welcome to Faster German. In this video, I want to speak to you about how can you learn German without having a native German speaker or any kind of German teachers on your side, because if you think about it, learning German with native German teachers is also very expensive. Having one-on-one classes, the classes range anywhere from 35 euros to up to 50 euros, and this is not something that every single one of us is able to pay. And that's why there's a way you can handle this in a better way, and that is the requirements that you have to think about of learning German at the basic levels are completely different than when you're learning German at the C1 or C2 level. And how do you approach these two categories, and how do you learn German without a native German speaker with as your teacher or as your tandem partner, something like that. This is something that I will speak now in this video. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, share it with a friend. So if you break down language learning, it can be essentially kind of divided into reading, writing, listening, speaking, watching. Now, watching is something which is combined medium. What is combined medium? Combined medium is like you're seeing something. So this is essentially reading people's lip movements, what they're speaking and so on, and listening together, right? So when you combine these two things, you're getting a hybrid form of learning something or consuming something, which is watching something, right? And of course, if you would talk to anybody about learning a specific language, many of them would say, if I watched this and this series, I learned the language and I got fluent in it because of this and this. And the thing is, like, they didn't essentially learn the language from those series. They already had some proficiency, and then they were able to get fluent in that specific language with XYZ series. Now, what do I mean by that? Look, whenever you're learning something, the most basic thing, if you can remember in the school, was us like reading. Like they were asking us to read a letter first, or like see a letter first, and then afterwards we were writing it, right? So reading, writing, listening. So this is very interesting because it even tells us, like, you can even like argue that, okay, like, we were reading it, we were listening it because we were speaking it out, and then afterwards we were going towards writing. And then we were also like speaking side by side. Because if they're both things, either you can say, okay, like if I don't understand like how it is spoken, like I don't understand like how the sound is going to be, but if you understand the sound, you will not be able to write still. But if you know how you can write a specific thing, you will be able to remember how you can speak it out, right? That's very important. That's why you have all of these like spelling challenges, things like that, because people should understand, if they're able to understand how something is written, more or less they will be able to get the pronunciation right. Now, what do I mean by this? Look, when you're not having access to native German speakers, and here I can show you one platform, this is called Preply. And here, if you take a look at the prices of 1 hour lessons, this is like 32 euros, 54 euros, 37 euros, 15 euros. And of course, when something is 15 euros, that's cheap in the starting. And once they start getting students, it again goes to the normal market price, which is around 28 to 30 euros. And if you think about in the same direction, like if you're having then maybe some kind of like online courses where you're able to like kind of get everything all together in one single place, either you can take one class with a native German speaker in speaking, know nothing, and maybe in that class you will only be able to learn ABCD, and you're like, okay, like, what did I learn with this? It was really a waste of time. Or you can actually prepare yourself so that when you're taking these kind of classes, it is going to be helpful for you anyways. And that's why we built the Faster German courses, so that it is like super affordable for you to go and start learning German on your own without the help of a teacher, because we already prepared everything in a way that things are easy for you. And this course, of course, we built together with a native German speaker, my wife, who grew up in Germany, and I learned German and had to study my master in German taught program. So that was a very nice combination, and we have like really, really good results so far. So students getting 100 out of 100, 99, 94, and so on. So how did we approach this course? We approached this course with the ideas that, look, there are two ways of consuming and learning a language, right? So the first part is the consumption part. Consumption part is very easy. What do I mean by consumption? Consumption is where you don't have to actively make sentences, you don't have to actively produce structures, and that's the easier part, right? And that's why, like, if you're able to read something, now we focus on reading. If you're able to listen to something, if you're able to watch something, all these things are very, very beneficial, because if you have focused on these three, then writing comes the next part. Like I can even like number these stages for you, right? Like, so the first stage is reading. Reading is the easiest because you're able to read it, and listening, if you're just listening to audios, many people say that they have a lot of like problems with that. You will not be able to like listen to something really well if you don't understand how it is written, what the text behind it is, what the meaning of that is, and all of that. That's why I always say that the primary thing, why most of the people focus on reading, why most of the very successful people always talk about like that they read a lot of books, things like that, is because if you're able to read something, the level of comprehension and the level of concentration that you have while reading, it's really, really high. And then afterwards comes listening. And listening, you have 100 thoughts going on in your brain. Sometimes somebody said something, or like some text is coming inside your ears, and you just completely forget it. Or like you were spacing out, you did not remember what was being said. And this is a place where the focus is not that high, right? Like you're very distracted at this place. Watching is a different story. In watching, you're having two mediums combined. You have reading combined and listening combined. And that's why I personally find that watching is also a very interesting and very captivative way to learn something, or like keep your attention hooked so that you're able to understand things, right? But everything is based on reading. If you're not spending time alone in reading things, in learning new things, none of the other things will work out. So once you have done these three things, right? Like, or even like if you have done reading and listening, right? If you're reading something and if you're like speaking it out, pronouncing it, that is like giving feedback to your ears. Then the next stage comes, if you pick the watching part, because you don't have the text for every single thing. That's why I have always put out some YouTube videos, things like that also in the course, so that you're able to get used to things. We also have our own vlogs, things like that, so that you're able to understand like, how people speak. And this is a combined medium from reading and listening. After that, like for me, the biggest thing, like the two things that you really have to focus on is reading and writing. If you're able to read, you're able to improve your listening. And if you're able to read and you're able to improve your listening, you're also able to improve your writing, because then a lot of the sentence structures that you already remember from your reading times, you'll be able to produce them in the writing times. And once you're able to focus on your writing and you're able to get it done well, then you will also be able to speak it well. Now, how do I tell you this? Look, all of these things I'm telling you from my own experience, because I come from India and I did not speak German as my native tongue. I had to learn German too, and I had to learn it to the C1 level so that I'm able to start my master's program in Germany in a German taught program. And then at the end of the program, I was at the C2 level. But all of these things always followed a very simple pattern. And the pattern was that from reading, I went to listening sometimes, or from reading, I went directly to writing, and listening was more like a nice bonus, right? When you're in countries like Germany, when you're in countries where you're able to listen to German, of course, it is easier for you because you're also getting this constant feedback. But absolutely nothing would make sense if you have never sat down and you have never spent time with a book. Because if you don't understand the basic structures, if you understand the basic sentences at all, everything that people say will sound like a gibberish to you. Like, it will be just sounds. It will be just weird, like animal sounds or whatever sounds that you cannot make sense of. But the moment you say, okay, I'm going to take this book of A1 and I'm going to understand how the language is structured, I'm able to understand the Der Die Das story, I'm able to understand the words, the vocabulary, things like that. When that happens, the story completely changes. And this is exactly the thing that you have to really focus on. My experience was that with reading, my overall language learning really improved, even when I was learning Russian. So I learned Russian for almost a period of 2.5, 3 months. And in that time, I also learned that every single time I would ask somebody, I would ask my teacher, hey, can you please tell me, like, how do I say this and this and this? For example, how do you say, what is your name? Как тебя зовут? And if they say it like that, maybe if it's a small sentence, I'm able to remember it. But if it's a longer sentence, it will make no sense whatsoever to me to ask them this, because I will forget it very quickly. And this is the reason I say, unless you know how something is written, unless you're able to see the text, you will not be able to remember what somebody is saying, what somebody is speaking about for a long time. And all of this is completely different than you growing up in a family, because there are also people who can speak a language, but they cannot read it, they cannot write it, and they can listen to it and speak to it just fine. But that is a completely different kind of feedback system that you're having, in which you're having a lot of time from your birth onwards. Nobody acquires it. Actually, nobody I know acquired it when they are grown up, when they have 100 things going on. Any single time somebody learned the language, that was when they have sat down with a book, with a course, whatever, put effort inside in learning the language, and only then they have been able to learn the language. This story that many people say that just because, oh yeah, you will go to Germany and you will learn German right away, that's the biggest nonsense I've ever heard in my life, because I have never seen people. I've seen people who are 10 years in Germany and they can still not speak a single word. They still complain that, oh yeah, German is so difficult, I cannot understand German. But guys, like, how much time have you put inside in actually understanding the language, in just picking up a book and following it through? There's a reason why most of us had to learn languages in schools with textbooks and things like that, because textbooks give you a structure. Textbooks are a proven method of teaching you something over centuries now. So this is the reason why I personally think that you should definitely focus on this. Definitely focus on reading. Once you're able to perfect your reading, or like you're able to understand what is written, then you will be able to focus on everything else. Because the biggest problem that people talk about is, like how am I going to practice my speaking, guys? Like, you will not be able to practice your speaking. Your speaking will always be bad if your writing is bad. This is what I believe. This is how I was able to improve my speaking too, and that is after writing multiple texts, writing conversations, things like that. This is something which your brain is able to already store and produce rather easily when you have to speak with somebody. So I would really recommend you to follow this pattern, because there are different kind of worries that people have when they're learning a language. They have the worry of, like, not having a native teacher. Like, well, if you want a native teacher, you can spend 32 euros for a 50-minute class, and A1 is at least 80 to 100 hours. So if you're talking about 100 hours, you can spend 3,200 euros on just the A1 level, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And these 100 hours are also like stretched in a very long time. Whereas if you're like going with our course, Faster German, like, you have the A1 syllabus covered completely in 14 days. And then afterwards, if you want to like improve your pronunciation, you want to do whatever you want, you can keep on doing it on the side. But at least know the language, understand the syntaxes, understand how the structures work and what kind of words are used. Once you learn the vocabulary, everything is going to be much, much easier for you than when you're starting out as somebody who has absolutely no idea about the language and are wasting a lot of money and time with, like, for example, native German teachers, where you are actually paying a lot of money. If you're paying so much money, like, even I have not taken a class yet with any of the German teachers, because I know like 51 euros for 50 minutes, that is going to pain a lot. So if that is going to be the story, like, I want to make sure that I am actually really well prepared. So I would like rather treat these classes as doubt solving sessions instead of learning a language session, right? So this is what I think about. I hope this helps you, because this is what has been proven really good for my progress in languages, both in German and Russian. Like, in both of these, I found reading things, using textbooks, and writing much, much better than directly focusing on speaking all the time. Because the moment you focus just on speaking, your memory is not that great that you're able to, like, remember that specific phrase for a very long time. That's why focus on reading and writing, and everything else will fall into place. If you want to start learning German, we have our Faster German courses from A1 to B2. The links for all of them are in the description. Also, there are bundle discounts which you can use. Everything is in this place. And if you have questions, you can write to me on Instagram. I'll see you there.